Everybody's got a price, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a pod, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price.
What's up, everybody? It's Marcus D'Angelo, and we are back for another episode of Everybody's Got a Pod, but unfortunately, we do not have the $1 million man with us this week. Ted is on his way across the pond, so we couldn't really coordinate schedules this week. He's going to be seeing his great fans over there in Aberdeen at the Comic-Con there in Scotland. He's going to have a good time. I know all the fans are going to have a good time seeing him. Then he's headed to London, Manchester, and Glasgow. He's going to be over there with Inside the Ropes doing some stage shows, meeting some fans. So a lot of great opportunities for fans over there in the UK to see the $1 million man and have some fun. And we're still going to have some fun this week on the show. We're going to be dipping back into the archives to do another best of compilation, looking back at some of the early episodes of Ask Ted Anything. I know that a lot of the listeners have heard them. A lot of the listeners maybe haven't heard them. They came into the podcast later. So some fresh content for some of you. I hope you guys enjoy it, and I hope you'll join us next week right here on Everybody's Got a Pod. All right, Ted, first question this week. Francis Sheffield asks, what's the worst injury you've ever suffered in the ring?
Wow. Well, it's kind of like, I guess, like I've never broken a bone, or anything of that nature. I actually, I think one time I did a spot where I had a guy in a turnbuckle, and I said, I'm going to turnbuckle you in charge, like I'm coming down with my shoulder into you, and I just said, you get out of the way. Well, what I normally would do is I would go all the way through and take the shot on my shoulder with the, like the idea being he moved and now I hit my shoulder on the ring post and now I'm selling my arm.
Yeah.
Well, I was just a little bit off and I went ding.
Oh.
And I got this tooth right here.
Did you break it out?
Well, yeah, I broke it in half.
Oh gosh,
I looked like dying for a while. But anyway, but for me and for most guys, this is not a single injury, but it's something that developed over time. I physically wrestled, for almost 20 years, and when you understand the nature of wrestling. It's not like today. Today, all the talent wrestle maybe 4 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Friday night SmackDown, Saturday, Sunday on the road, Monday Night Raw, and they go home. That wasn't the case when I was wrestling. It was every day. Every day. No, there were no days off. Your day off would be when you would get like a break, maybe you do a 3-week tour and then everybody goes home for a week, but you're not really going home for a week because your first day off, you're spending half that day getting home.
Mm-hmm.
And your last day off, you're spending half that day getting to the next town you're going to.
My goodness.
So yes, you're really only off 5 full days a month. It was brutal. Anyway, back to the injury thing. I started feeling this, this pain, and it was generating like down my shoulder and into the back of my arm, and I just couldn't figure out what it was. So when I went to the doctor, they did an MRI on my neck, and I had herniated the discs between C5 and C6.
Okay.
They had to take that out, and back then they replaced it with a chip from your bone in your hip, and now they replace it with something else. But back then they still replaced it with a chip from your hip, and that was it. And there are several guys. I think Jake's had this same thing done.
Yes.
But a lot of guys, because that's the thing is like the basic bump we take. And that's what the doctor told me. He says, you take your basic bump is from your feet to your back.
Mm-hmm.
You land flat. You keep your head tucked so you don't knock yourself out. But all that weight is falling. The majority of it is because across the top of your shoulders and the back of your neck. And so night after night after night after night, and then eventually it herniated that disc, and that rest is history. So
next up, we've got Bert Seymour, who asks, if you can only choose one, who's the better performer, Bret Hart or Shawn Michaels? This is a tough choice for a lot of folks.
Wow. It's hard to pick one because it's like when I think about Bret Hart, Bret Hart is an unbelievable ring technician, but the guy who just has and always did have an unbelievable amount of charisma was Shawn Michaels.
Yep.
I mean, he just did. He had it. Yeah, but I don't know. That's really tough. Like I just don't think that I could. There's so many things about both guys that are good. It's almost like a toss up because of what I just explained to you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's a tough choice. And look, I think that you can look at it in a couple of ways. Maybe the better in-ring technician, the guy who just knows the ins and outs, can get out of any situation, no matter the issue, is Bret Hart. Maybe the better performer, however, is Shawn Michaels, because he could cut a great promo. He could captivate the audience with his kind of phenomenal moves. He knew how to, kind of manipulate the crowd. So there's really a lot of ways you could go on that one. Well, yeah, and he did cut good promos as well. Yep.
But I guess, and again, for the excitement, again, Bret was a great ring technician, but he wasn't that explosive type of guy like Shawn. So maybe I'd have to give it to Shawn by a hair.
Yeah, it's Road Dogg. Brian James got in a little trouble online a little while ago. Well, not trouble, but fans started to come after him a little bit because he said that he felt that he's a better sports entertainer than Bret Hart. He was like, let me clarify. He was like, Bret Hart can work circles around me. He was like, I can't work anywhere near as well as Bret Hart can. He was like, but as far as being a sports entertainer, a guy who can come out there and cut a promo that captivates the audience and entertains the people consistently every single night, he was like, I think that I'm better. And I think there's an argument to be made there because, a guy like Road Dogg, he's got this over-the-top personality. He's really entertaining, but he's not anywhere close to being the technician that Bret is. So it's fascinating. It's it's a little column A, a little column B, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree, it's like I wouldn't. That'd be interesting. You might do a survey on that, Marcus. Ask the fans. It's like, what did the $1 Million Man do better? Was he a better ring technician, or was he a better interviewer?
I like this. We're going to put this out on social media after this episode comes out and see exactly what everybody has to say about it. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. But bottom line is, it's kind of like, seriously though, you have to have both to be and a lot of times, and I don't know if the fans understand this, but a lot of times the reason that a promoter will put a manager with a talent is because that talent, whoever that wrestler is, he's really good in the ring, but he's the shits on the microphone.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times for guys that aren't great on the microphone, they give them a mouthpiece. and so it's kind of like, and who do you think I was at the fans, who was the greatest mouthpiece in the WWE ever?
Got to be like a Bobby Heenan, right?
Bingo. First one, yeah, Bobby Heenan. I can't think of anybody that did a better job than Bobby Heenan, because he covered all the points. He made you mad as hell, and he was very entertaining.
Yes, and just so quick-witted, so able to like roll with the punches no matter what was said or what happened around him. He could make something of it.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So to say who's a better performer, it's it's a good question, but I don't know that we can really get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Tin Soda asks, how'd you come up with the $1 million dream as a finisher? You weren't doing that before you arrived in the WWF, right?
No. It was kind of like, I was as a baby face, my finisher was figure 4 leg lock. And, I would, the way I went into it though, I would do the Funk's spinning toe hold.
Okay.
Into, like I'd go around and around and around on the leg, and then I would sit back into the figure 4. And that was my finish, but it's kind of like when I got to WWE and I realized, there's all these different, there are some people you gotta think of something that you can do with everybody.
Right.
And I was like, there's, there's some guys, you're not going to be able to, like, there's no way for example, of course, I never anticipated wrestling Andre, but there'd be no way to put the figure 4 on him. No, but it's a modified sleeper, and a sleeper hold is pretty easy to put on anybody.
Yes.
And it's good because it's one of those holes where you can sell it like you're there, and you start to sink, and you raise your hand up, and you're trying, and the fans are, if you're a baby face, obviously, and the fans are rooting for you to come out of it. So
yeah, you can really build drama with something like that. Yeah. I'm wondering though, it's really similar to the Cobra clutch, and Slaughter was there using the Cobra clutch as well. Was there ever any issue there?
No.
He didn't care that you were using the similar finisher?
He didn't care. I didn't care. And he called his the Cobra clutch, and I called mine the $1 million dream.
Hey man, that works. That works. I know that in some territories or some places, like, if you did the same finish as somebody and you came into their territory, then you had to stop using that finish, right?
Yeah. Well,
not in this case.
This is post territory.
We've got Matthew Brinks next, who asks, who is a guy that should have had a bigger career than he did?
Oh, man.
So we got to think of somebody who's like a really talented in-ring performer, maybe even great on the mic, but just never quite caught on. Does anybody stick out for you?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you one person who had it all and never really got a shot at it. That was Terry Taylor.
Oh, okay.
I would say that Terry was like oozing with charisma, but I mean, he was good on mic. He was good in the ring. I mean, and he's one of the guys training the developmental crew right now. So, I mean, obviously they think he's good. Terry Taylor's one of those guys who I thought had pretty much had it all. Just never got a real big break.
Yeah, he's a good worker, and Bill Watts clearly saw a lot in him because he did a lot with him in Mid-South. But then I don't know, he wound up coming into the WWF, and he got saddled with that Red Rooster gimmick. Yeah, Ted, when you saw the Red Rooster for the first time, did you think, hey, there's a main eventer?
No. I was like, I mean, I'm seriously, I was like, well, who thought up that crap?
It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. And he would do like the cock-a-doodle-doo and like strut around like a rooster. And it's like, yeah, I don't know what we're doing here. It feels like we're intentionally trying to bury a guy.
Yeah, and that might have been, I don't know. I don't know. I asked Terry. I said, Terry, he said, you don't have any heat with Vince, do you?
Kind of seems like it. Must have done something to piss him off.
Hey, but to his credit, he did the best he could with it.
He gave it his best, and then he wound up going to WCW, and he kind of ripped off your gimmick when he was in WCW. Did you ever see that? The tailor-made man?
Yeah.
Which is funny. It wound up being their version of the $1 Million Man, kind of.
Yeah.
And actually, there's a related question here that I'll skip ahead to, because we're talking about guys getting stuck with, bad gimmicks or bad creative coming in the door. Kurt Guthrie, I guess is how you say it, asks, what did Ted think about Dusty Rhodes being put in polka dots and the Common Man vignettes? So here's Dusty Rhodes, NWA legend, this guy who's established a huge name for himself in Florida and with JCP. He comes in, and I believe it was 1989, and he gets put in polka dots, and he's plunging toilets, delivering pizzas in these vignettes. Ted, what did you think?
Well, once again, the first thought was, who does he have heat with? Son of a plumber. Now I am the plumber. I mean, and I mean, but yeah, I mean, I thought it was an intentional, like, we're going to see you and get rid of you. But I'm going to tell you something. He made it work.
Yes.
He made it work.
He did.
And, we had a good run, man. I had fun doing promos about Sapphire.
And then, of course, you baited her over to your side with some money, and then Dustin got involved, and that is some great stuff. I cannot wait for us to have a chance to talk about it. But no, Jake says the same thing, because I think that I asked him that question on one of our shows, and he was like, it seemed like an intentional burial to me for Dusty coming in. He was like, maybe because Dusty had so much success with the competitor, he was like, but Dusty came in and just nailed it.
Yeah.
I think that's a secret. You got to own whatever they give you and make it your own. And they did. All right. Next up, we've got Paul 30, Nurse 07. Why was your feud with the Big Boss Man cut so short? I was expecting a big match at SummerSlam 1990. Ted, do you have any memory of why that would have been cut short?
No, I couldn't tell you. I mean, I liked the big, I liked the guy, the Big Boss Man. I had no heat with him, or there was no ill will on either side of that. I don't know. Maybe they didn't think it was going anywhere.
He seemed like he made a better heel because he was such a big guy.
Yeah.
And he is such like an imposing figure. For him to kind of be like, all of a sudden go from being that guy, who is coming after Hogan, to being like, hey, I'm just a friendly prison guard. It doesn't really work, right?
Yeah. And that might have been it. I mean, and somebody's already asked this another time. They said, was there ever any talk about the $1 Million Man turning babyface? Never.
Can't be.
Never. Because there's so much you could do with that character, but the last thing you ever want to do is turning babyface. No.
I don't even know how you would, after all like the bad will you would spread for so many years. It's like, how do you possibly turn things around for this guy? He's been so evil for so long.
I don't know.
Yeah, you'd have to start literally giving money away to fans, I guess. That might work.
That might, maybe.
Next up, we've got Reservoir Dogs 678, who asks, "What's your honest opinion of Goldberg?" So, kind of a controversial figure over the years. Ted, you were there with the company, maybe not present, but you were signed to the company during his rise. What did you think of Goldberg?
Well, just as a person, I have nothing against Goldberg. I don't know that he was ever worthy of the position he was given.
Mm.
I would put it this way: it's like, what was Goldberg already known for?
Football.
And and so here's a guy who is very well known for his football talent, and we're gonna try to make a wrestling star out of that based on the celebrity he's already got from being a football player.
Right.
And I just don't know that it works. I mean, it's kind of like, I don't have anything against the guy. I mean, and more power to him. If you get a shot, take it. But I just, it's kind of like I don't see him as being, as far as wrestling goes, a great talent in any way.
No, and that's always been the criticism of him, is that he's not only not a polished ring worker, but he's also kind of dangerous in the ring. Like when he would hit people with that spear, especially early on, it looked like a shoot, which is why I think a lot of people were drawn to him, because he would really, really tackle the hell out of people with that spear.
Yeah.
And then, Starrcade 1999, he ended Bret Hart's career with a thrust kick that really connected, gave Bret a concussion, which led to the end of his in-ring career. So that's kind of always been the big criticism of Goldberg. But, man, pretty captivating in the ring, right?
Yeah, but I mean, you can be captivating, but it's kind of like, the first rule of wrestling is you take care of your opponent.
Mm.
And, it seems that, of course, I never worked with the guy, but it's kind of like 1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato, 4. I said, you potato me, I'm going to potato you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you potato me once, okay, it slipped up. If it happens a second time, there's going to be a receipt, and it's going to be a receipt you won't forget.
Yeah.
That's just, and that's always been the business, and if you don't like it, there's the door. So
now, when you would nail somebody with a receipt, for the most part, was it pretty well like, okay, I understand, sort of a thing? Or did you ever get into a situation where you'd hit somebody with a receipt and it would piss them off and it would turn into a situation?
That never happened.
Okay. No. So most guys would own it. Like, okay, I potatoed you. I deserve it.
Yeah.
Mark Mingo asks, okay, what was your favorite $1 Million Man merch or toy? For me, it's got to be the LJN rubber action figure. What did you think, Ted? Did you have a favorite?
a favorite action figure?
It's me. Like I don't really picture you like in your bathtub playing with them or anything like that. But maybe like which one did you look at and say like, hey, that's one of the better ones?
My favorite action figure is the one that makes the most money.
That's the right answer.
And that's not the $1 Million Man. That's a shoot. The one that makes the most money is the one that makes me the happiest. And I don't know. They keep, those Funko Pops, they just keep making them.
Yep.
I mean, there was, I know they had one come out, and then they had another one come out with me in the white and gold outfit. And that was like they called the Chase.
Yep.
Now there's 2 more.
Yeah, they're making more, and
they're making more
elites.
So, hey, keep them coming, baby.
Absolutely. Not only I'm sure you get royalties, but also it's something nice for your gimmick table now. If you pick up a few of them, you can put them on your table.
Yeah.
Sign them. Yeah, it just works. But that's the correct answer.
I tell everybody, I said, well, at least I got the size of my head right.
Jay Andrews is up next. This is kind of a fun question. Do you have any good Dick Slater stories? Ted, it seems like everybody's got a Dick Slater story.
I can't say that I really have a good Dick Slater story. I know that Slater was he was a good worker, and I met him on a tour going to Japan, and that was my first get to know Dick Slater. And Dick was, like me, a huge fan of Terry Funk. And I would watch Slater work, and it was like watching Terry Funk work, because he tried to copy a lot of Terry's mannerisms. That's something I noticed about him, and but no, I mean, I wasn't around Slater too much in the States, like I said, we did a tour, maybe a couple of tours of Japan together, but yeah, nice guy and a hell of a worker, but I don't,
So rumor has it that he was one of the toughest dudes in the history of wrestling, just a guy that everybody knew that you do not piss with. Did you ever see that firsthand?
I didn't, but I heard that as well, so, and of course, with the relationship he had with Terry, and that wasn't ever going to happen between the two of us anyway.
Right.
I had heard, Dick Slater could really go, and that doesn't mean he's a wrestler with amateur background. It means he's a tough son of a bitch, and he'll rock your world if you don't, if you choose to piss him off.
Did you ever hear about the story with him and Sting?
No.
Okay, so rumor has it that Sting was so Dick Slater was with Dark Journey in real life. They had a relationship, and rumor has it that Sting was maybe kind of sniffing around Dark Journey, so to speak, and Slater took issue with it, and Sting wound up with his head being shoved into a toilet. You've never heard this?
No. Really?
Yeah, so
it's amazing. There's like one of those inside wrestler stories that this inside wrestler never heard.
Jake, I talked to Jake about it a little bit. So apparently Murdoch was there too, and Sting at the time was tag teaming with a young Ultimate Warrior, and Murdoch had Warrior pinned against the wall, so he couldn't interfere with any of it. And Slater wound up dunking Sting's head into one of the toilets in the locker room. Wow. Yeah. So
I do remember the arrival of the idiot, the ultimate idiot. That's right. He and Sting, basically, they showed up together, and that was for Bill Watts, I think.
Yep, they got their start in Jerry Jarrett's territory, and then I think they made their way over to Mid-South as the Blade Runners, and they were tag teaming.
That's what I remember is the Blade Runners.
Now, I know that
I never became friends with the Warrior, but I ultimately did become very good friends with
Sting.
With Sting.
I've had the pleasure of being around Sting a few times, and he's always really kind and generous with his time, and such a nice man. So again, I wasn't there, obviously. I don't even think I was born yet when this allegedly happened, but that's always been kind of the prevailing rumor over the years, is that that's something that took place, and just kind of reinforces the idea that maybe Dick Slater is not a guy that you want to mess around with.
No. Or Dick Murdoch.
So Dick Murdoch is not a physique guy, and if he's pinning the Ultimate Warrior up against the wall with all those muscles, that says something about Dick Murdoch being a double tough son of a bitch.
Oh yeah, that's the other guy that you never want to screw around with. Yeah, I mean, and Dickie was good, and he was. Now, here's the other thing: I don't think Dick Murdoch ever got the credit he should have gotten as a worker. He was one hell of a worker. And I think they were thinking about putting the world title on him at one time, the NWA world title. But Dick Dick is such, you don't ever know which guy is going to show up. If the serious guy is going to show up, or if the guy who wants to be a clown is going to show up and make you laugh your ass off. So I think that's what hindered Dick from ever becoming the world champion. So
It makes me wonder, Ted. I did a stage show with Jake not all that long ago at StarCast here, and one of the questions that it was actually an employee backstage wanted us to address while we were on stage was how Jake feels about comedy in wrestling. It's become a bigger thing as the years have gone by, with characters like Orange Cassidy and Danhausen. I know you probably aren't really aware of who those two guys are, but there's a lot of comedy in professional wrestling today. Kind of silly stuff, kind of breaking the fourth wall, breaking kayfabe, which, of course, has been dead regardless for years. But still, a lot of people like to protect it, where some guys are kind of being silly out there. What's your take on comedy in wrestling?
I don't get it. I mean, it's again, it goes back to this, from the get-go. When you walk into a movie theater, it's a movie. You know that what you're about to see is being acted out, and the characters are fictional. These are just really good actors, and if a really good actor is a really good actor, then he can draw you into his story, and have you on the edge of your seat. He can make you laugh, make you cry. Well, guess what? In wrestling, it's the same thing. If the heel is really good at what he does, he knows how to turn your buttons and piss you off and make you want to hate him. And so for me, doing funny shit in a wrestling match isn't funny.
All right, Joe Alcom with a simple question, but maybe not quite as simple as it would appear on the surface. Joe asks, who do you think is the greatest wrestler of all time? I mean, an easy question on the surface, but man, there's a lot of ground you can cover there, right?
Mm-hmm. That's, for me, I can't pick one. I can't say there's anybody that rises so far ahead and higher than everybody else that, now I would say in the entertainment world, period, the greatest entertainer of any kind, irregardless of it's kind of like you just entertainment. Yeah, whether he's a baseball player, football player, singer, whatever, dancer, or whatever. The greatest entertainer of all time, the most popular entertainer of all time, was Elvis Presley.
Yes.
Hands down. I don't think anybody could argue with that. But I mean, just to pick one wrestler, I don't know. I can't say there's any one wrestler that's had that much more exposure than the next, or what have you. At the top in terms of, it's like I would put Terry Funk up there.
Yep.
I would put Harley Race up there.
Those are great.
Funk Jr. Yeah, I mean, I put him up there too. Now, if you go back to the 60s era, before everything just really broke out, it was territorial. And that would be harder to pick. In that era, gosh.
I mean, probably back in the 60s, I would have to believe that Bruno is probably considered the best of that era just because of his reach. Was.
Yeah, Bruno Sammartino. Lou Thez is another one.
Yeah.
Lou Thez was a great NWA world champion.
Well, I think that a lot of people, certainly nowadays, I hear a lot of fans say, like, okay, who's the greatest wrestler of all time? Most people seem to gravitate toward Ric Flair, and say, well, his ring work, his persona, his longevity, where today he's still, considered one of the greatest. What's your take on that? Is Rick the greatest?
Rick's certainly at the top of the list, but here's the other thing. I know Rick. I love Rick, and Rick and I, we've had a few matches, but the thing that I think I didn't like about Rick is it's almost like if you saw him once, you saw him.
Yeah.
Because when you see him again, you're going to see the same match, or this, all of the same things that he does in that match.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of like, it's like when you're the world champion, it's not real hard to go all over the country and have the same match with a different guy every night. If you know what I'm saying.
I think that makes sense. And I know that you love Rick and you're close friends with him, and that's certainly not a knock on Rick. He made an awful lot of money doing that stuff over and over again. However, to your point, there was not a ton of variety with Ric Flair, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just like, and I think, Rick probably, and it may be to his credit too, because people know the things that Rick do, they're anticipating him doing them.
That's what Rick has always said whenever somebody asks him about that. He says, like, well, look, when your favorite musician comes to town, you want them to play that song that that you love. Yeah. He was like, if they don't play that song, you're disappointed.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It is. Again,
there's no knock on Rick. Oh my gosh. I mean, definitely. Yeah. In the top 10, absolutely. Hands down.
Gotta be.
Gotta be.
Don Skurlock is up next, and he asks, what was your first impression of The Undertaker when he debuted at Survivor Series 1990?
Well, I mean, I thought the gimmick was great, but I mean, it's like, my respect for The Undertaker came as I continued to watch him and realized, what he could do. And it's really hard to, here's a guy that's, like he's supposed to be a dead man, right? Come back to life or whatever. So, he doesn't move real, he doesn't move real fast. And it's like trying to do high spots in slow motion.
Like the fact that gimmick got over as well as it did, like if somebody came to you, Ted, and they said, hey, I'm bringing in this guy, I want your opinion on him. Here's what we're going to do. He's going to be dead and he's not going to sell for anybody. He's going to do everything really slowly. He's going to be able to fucking summon lightning. Like on the surface, you'd be like, hey man, I don't think that thing's going to work, but he worked.
Oh yeah, he did. Huge. That's great. He's great, man. Love the guy. Yeah, that's another thing about Mark is he's a good guy.
Yes.
He's a good person.
What do you think it was about Mark and his ability, like, to take a gimmick like that, which on the surface, like, man, there's probably only one guy on the planet who could pull off that gimmick, and it's Mark Calloway. Like, what do you think it was that made him so successful with a gimmick that's kind of questionable on the surface?
God only knows.
And that's why he's who he is.
Because I don't know, he just took to that, and I have no idea. I mean, it's kind of like, had he not done that, I'm just wondering who would Mark Calloway be? Right. Would he have ever become a big wrestling star if it hadn't have been for the Undertaker gimmick? Probably
not, because it was just such an indelible kind of a look and a gimmick for him that, man, it's who knows if he would have made it. We'll do a few more and we'll get out of here, Ted. There's actually kind of a related question here that I'll skip to. What did you think of the Undertaker's streak coming to an end at WrestleMania? Should it have happened? What did you think, Ted?
personally, just because I know Mark and just how long, and how much had been put into that, all the blood, sweat, and tears he put into it. I didn't think the streak should stop. I thought it should have kept going. My own personal opinion.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Because it was just such a cool thing in wrestling and such a unique thing. And then in one night, one fell swoop, a 3 count, and it's just done. It's over.
Yeah.
And it's, man. And here's the other thing is I love Brock Lesnar. And, man, he'll go down as one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. However, if you're going to have The Undertaker put somebody over at WrestleMania, why have him put over a guy who's already so well established?
Yeah. I don't know.
It's interesting.
I don't know.
A couple more and we're done. Tim asks, did Ted get to see much of The Rock's work, and what did he think of him? Ted, The Rock wound up springing back up here in WWE this past week on SmackDown, and I mean, an unbelievable reaction from the crowd whenever his music hit. Did you get to see much of his stuff when he was in his prime?
You know what? I didn't. And what's funny is I'm trying to think which WrestleMania it was. Because that's the only reason I was back. I was back because it was WrestleMania, and we were back in the back. And I walked in the dressing room or something, and then I looked up and I saw him, and we spotted each other, and he smiled and came over and shook my hand, and I just, he's just one of those guys that the whole time he was around, I wasn't anywhere around. I wasn't doing anything with the WWF or anybody else at that. When Rock was in the WWF, became a star, got big, I wasn't there for any of it.
Yeah, I mean, I know that whenever he would have started, you were in WCW, and then, by the time that you had come back to the WWF to work behind the scenes, he was in Hollywood doing his thing.
Yeah.
So.
But did I tell you the story? Now this is Haku.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Haku and I are tremendous friends. When Haku first came in, his real name is Tonga. Tonga Fafita is his real name. And he is legit from the island of Tonga. His father, I think it was his father, was like the tribal chief there.
Wow.
And where Tonga first went is he first went to Japan. And then Japan, the Japanese sent him over to the United States, I got through the Funks. And so I actually first met him in Amarillo, Texas. And again, he rode with me and all that other stuff. And, I let him bunk with me and all that. And you see, he was just a real good guy, and apparently that they had sent like $1,000 with him from Japan, to help him get started.
Mm-hmm.
It either was stolen or lost somewhere en route, the money. And so he landed in Amarillo without anything. So I just took him under wing, and of course back then, he was just a young guy. And he didn't it's kind of like, and so then, that, whatever that was, that time period, I went somewhere, he went somewhere. And then I go to do St. Louis wrestling, the TV. And so I'm walking down this corridor of the TV station in St. Louis. And this great big guy goes walking by me, and I just kind of looked up at him, and I took 2 steps. And my eyes went like this, and I turned around and I said, Tonga? And he just looked back at me and got a big grin on his face. And he said, hey, Ted, how you doing? I said, what happened? I mean, he just went, he like turned into this monster. I mean, oh my gosh. And I tell everybody else, I said, there's a guy you definitely don't want to piss off. Because you talk about a guy who can be all by himself when he wants to be, it would be Tonga.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And so, but this was a true story. And Tonga told me, he says, when The Rock broke in, he says, I kind of took him under wing. He says, kind of like you took me under wing. And I showed that, took care of him in certain ways. So all this time goes by and everything. And so The Rock drives up, and he's driving a brand new Ford F-150 pickup truck. This is down in, I guess, in Tampa. Is that where Tonga lives? I think he lives down there.
I think so.
A lot of the guys live in Tampa, a lot of the wrestlers. Anyway, so, Tonga goes to The Rock. He goes, brother, he says, I like your new ride. And The Rock looks at Tonga and goes, brother, it ain't mine. And he says, well, whose is it? And The Rock tossed him the keys.
Whoa.
Bought him a brand new pickup truck. And he says, thank you for all you did for me.
How about that?
Yeah. So as a rib, I said, okay, Tonga, where's my pickup truck?
I knew where it was going before you even said it. What did he say?
He just laughed. So
you mentored him? Come on, man.
Yeah.
That's great. All right, we'll do one more and I'll let you go, Ted. Michael Rowenbeck asks, did you and Virgil get along in real life? So Ted, I included this one because you've spoken nicely about Virgil here on the podcast for the most part, but I've heard things over the years that maybe you guys didn't quite always get along. What can you tell us about your personal relationship with him?
No, we never had any problems. Virgil, and his real name, I guess, is Mike. Mm-hmm. And I won't say his last name, but anyway, I know that he was from Pittsburgh, and he was a real nice guy, and I think he had tried some wrestling. I guess the nicest way to say it is like, the lights are on, but sometimes you're not sure anybody's home. He's just not the brightest guy, but that, so what? He did what he was hired to do. And I mean, that was, and publicly, but basically that's what Vince said. He said, we want to make the public believe as much as possible that Ted is this rich guy. And so you go with him, in the airports, you open doors, get the bags, all that stuff, that you would normally do if you were serving somebody. Now, and we did that, but and even that wore off after a while. But again, I never had any issues with Mike. Seemingly a good guy. I mean, he, back then he took real good care of himself. I mean, stayed in tremendous shape, but just not a real sharp guy. Just not, if he'd have had, they did one little thing with me and him where I ended up having to wrestle him or something. And, but it didn't go anywhere because he just doesn't have it,
Right. And everybody can.
He had tremendous look, I mean, that's what that with him, with them big guns and his arms folded, he looked very menacing, but he just, again, I like the guy. And I told him I just saw him at a signing recently. And he doesn't look good. I don't know what he has, and he never really talks about it. Mm-hmm. But for a while, I wasn't seen with him, or promoters would ask, because I started hearing stories that I didn't like. Stories about him being that, like an autograph signing, and a little kid comes up to his table or whatever, and Virgil asks him, he asks the kid, "Hey kid, you want an autograph picture?" And the kid goes, "Yeah." So he signs the autograph, and then he says, $20. And And the kid goes, you asked me if I wanted one. And I said, yes. He says, well, he says, it's not free. $20. Go get your daddy.
Oh, wow.
And, and so and then I'd hear another story and another story. And what I think is it was just, I think a guy who had nothing else to do, no other source of income, and was trying to survive.
Yes.
And I know that the whole time we were together, it was my understanding that he lived at home with his mom. And then, but I apparently now that he's in poor health and everything, my heart kind of goes out to the guy, who knows, maybe sometimes drastic things have to happen in a person's life for them to wake up, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so I have, there's a couple of guys that promote signings and stuff. I said, listen, anytime, I said, I'm going to be looking for bookings that are within striking distance of Pittsburgh. And I got this guy's number that takes care of him. And I said, I will call you. And if we can get Virgil on the show with me, would you be willing to bring him? He said, definitely. And that's all I can think to do to try to help him is to include him on some of the bookings that I have that are, within reasonable distance of Pittsburgh.
Man, that's awesome, Ted. And by the way, Chillicothe, Ohio. I don't know what part of Ohio that Chillicothe's in, but maybe it's close enough to Pittsburgh that you guys can make that one work.
Yeah.
I think that's later this month. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
I think so.
He might already be booked on it for all I know. But in any case, that's awesome that you're willing to help him out like that.
Yeah. Mike was a good guy. He just, he never got in trouble and never, if he'd have, it's kind of like if he'd had any real wrestling talent, we could have, the things I could have done with him. It was like, here's this guy that's subservient to me for like years, right? And then he finally gets tired of taking my shit. It could have been great, but unfortunately, Mike he's just not equipped.
All right, guys, it's 2025, and it's time for you to get your mojo back in the bedroom with a little help from BlueChew. It is time for you to have better sex, and BlueChew is the way to go. BlueChew is putting its money where its mouth is and offering you a month for free. And guys, the process is real simple. Just sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. BlueChew tablets are made right here in the US of A and prepared and shipped direct to your door. Boy, let me tell you, you will see that mail carrier coming and come sprinting down your driveway. You can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready when the opportunity arises. The best part, it's all done online. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy anymore. Look, the question's always the same whenever I tell people about BlueChew. They ask, does it work? Let me tell you, brother, it works. You're going to be called an Eagle Scout the way you're going to be pitching tents after you try out BlueChew. And BlueChew is on a mission. They will not stop until every man is bricked up like a brick house. That is what they're after. That's what they've been telling me. It's time for you to find out for yourself with a month for free. Guys, think about this. You could be missing out on the very best sex of your entire life without even knowing about it. BlueChew is worth the try to at least set your mind at ease on that. They say that there's nothing sexier than confidence, and BlueChew can help deliver it where it counts. We can all relate to wanting to feel more confident, especially in the bedroom, and BlueChew is here for you. It's time, guys. Make your life easier by getting harder and discover your options at BlueChew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try your first month of BlueChew free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank BlueChew for sponsoring the podcast. All right, Ted, if you're ready, we can start to jump into these questions.
Let's go.
All right, let's get it. First up, we've got Kevin Cheadle, who asks, what was your favorite wrestler that you ever managed? Ted, anybody stick out for you?
Gosh, managed. Wow. I managed a few. I managed, who was in Money Incorporated?
Well,
uh,
we've got Sid, we've got Tatanka, King Kong Bundy. I want to say Koloff was in there for a little bit, right? Yeah, he was. Who else? Oh gosh, 1-2-3 Kid was in there for a hot
yeah,
minute.
yeah.
Steve Austin.
Well, yeah, and then of course, Steve Austin was there for a while, but obviously, and I saw that coming. I mean, Steve, obviously Steve Austin has become a super icon, and I get it. But I didn't manage him very long.
No, it was a pretty.
And be honest with you, I didn't think I'd be managing very long because I could see what the guy had, and I just, man, this guy's he's gonna shoot to the top.
Ordinarily managers are kind of reserved for guys who maybe struggle a little bit with promos and need a little extra something.
Yeah,
that was not Steve.
Well, that's exactly why I said he's not going to be with me long because he don't need me. Yeah.
So I mean, among those guys that you've managed, plus I mean, you were in the NWO, so I mean, you managed, I think at different times, Hall and Nash and Six, and eventually you go on to manage the Steiner brothers. So, any one act or performer stick out for you, and why is it Sid?
Gosh, man, that's a whole lot of talent. But in terms of as a manager and probably Steve Austin. But I mean, I tell you who I had fun managing, Bundy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a good guy. He's a fun guy. I mean, obviously not the greatest wrestler in the world, but he was a fun guy for sure.
And I don't think he needed to be the greatest wrestler in the world. He was just enormous and imposing, and that's kind of all you need to have a guy like that. Plus a good mouthpiece, and you provided that aspect.
Well, yeah, and I'll be honest with you, he did pretty good on his own.
He did have a pretty decent promo. Yeah, he wasn't bad.
Yeah, that's a hard question. I mean, because there's so many guys, it's a plethora of talent, and it's like I don't want to pick one and cut somebody else short.
Next up, kind of a related question with the manager thing. It's David Hill who asks, "Who is your favorite manager of all time?" Personally, I'm fond of Cornette, but Heenan was great as well. Anybody stick out for you?
You mean just in general, a manager or somebody who managed me?
It can be either one, but really it's just, like a guy that you look at and you're like, okay, that is the perfect manager, the best I've ever seen.
Bobby Heenan.
Mm-hmm.
Bobby Heenan could do it all. And you give him a microphone and he just let him go. he was really good, in my opinion. And of course, Jimmy Hart. Jimmy Hart was a good manager, and of course, for a while I had Sherry. And I'm gonna tell you something. Sherry was good. It's kind of like if I was going to have somebody as a manager, I would rather have somebody who I had to grab and kind of pull back in instead of you got to do more. With Sherry, with Sherry, it was whoa. It's kind of like you want to make the special moments special, and if you do too much, you kind of blow it. But I mean, but again, as a manager, she did real well. She worked very well with me, and she got plenty of heat.
You guys had awesome chemistry too. The two of you just kind of like worked really well together. She had like the sparkly kind of outfit on, and you of course were the $1 Million Man, and I don't know, just like the whole aesthetic really worked. Plus, I always liked Sherry because she wasn't afraid to get physical.
Oh, exactly. I mean, and listen, and when she was, before, I mean, oh gosh, I knew Sherry way back, like when I was first starting. I remember she was in Baton Rouge, and I can't remember. Obviously, when I first met her, and I'm trying to, I can't even remember, if she was seeing one of the guys or whatever. But I recognized in her a toughness. I mean, Sherry, I'll be honest with you. She wouldn't take crap off anybody. I mean, you know, she'd stand up. She'd tend to stand up right up to one of the guys if she if they went the wrong way with her. So, and I always admired that. You know, good for you. You know.
Absolutely. And if I remember right, didn't you induct her into the Hall of Fame, Ted?
Yeah, I think it did.
Pretty awesome. Really awesome. Next up, we've got Jim James 4854 who asks, I love the match between you and Jimmy Snuka at SummerSlam 89. What was it like to wrestle the Superfly?
Wow. You know, that's probably one of the only times I ever wrestled Snuka. And yeah, and that again, that's testament to itself. It's kind of like there's a lot of guys, you know, like Jake and I, we wrestled and we're in the ring together a lot over time. And so it wouldn't be hard. It wouldn't be very hard for us to have a good match because we know each other so well, you know, and you when you work with somebody long enough, you know what they do good and you know where to go with it. You know, but you know, in this case, it was like, wow, I don't, you know.
You got to kind of feel him out like in the ring.
Yeah. So anyway.
So maybe not like perfect chemistry or anything, but like, you know, like, would you say that he was a decent enough performer to get a good match out of?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. No problem. No problem there. Not at all.
So I want to ask you about this, and you know, there's kind of no easy way to ask the question. And let me preface it by saying I met Jimmy Snuka a few years before he passed away. Could not have been kinder to me or my brother. Really a nice person whenever I met him. However, and I'm sure you know where I'm going here. We hear recently that he may have been involved in some illicit activity that resulted in the death of a young woman back in the 80s. Ted, did you ever hear anything about that over the years? And what did you think whenever you did hear about it?
Well, you know, that story has been around a long time, and I wouldn't know if there's any truth to it. I mean, I'll put it this way: the Jimmy Snuka I knew, I would say I wouldn't. I don't think he'd be capable of doing that. But you know. Things happen in people's lives that change them. And it could be that happened in a time in Jimmy's life where, you know, maybe if it did happen, that it changed him. That, you know, the realization of what he'd done. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Maybe changed him as a human being. That kind of made him have a harder look at himself.
Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, that story's round and round and round. And I guess there's a whole lot of people that know the absolute truth, but I'm not one of them.
That's, I mean, perfect answer, Ted. You know, it's, you only know what you know. And that's how you knew Jimmy Snuka as a human being.
Yeah. Yep.
Next up, we've got Jeremy Anderson. In the 1991 Royal Rumble, when you were shaming Virgil and demanding him to put the belt around your waist, someone threw something that hit you in the back. Was it ice? Do you remember this incident? Ted, that's a pretty specific question. Any chance you remember what hit you in the ring?
Well, I'll put it this way. I don't remember anything hitting me in the ring.
You were locked in.
So if it hit me in the back and I had that jacket on, I probably, especially if it was ice, I wouldn't even feel it. You know, if it hit me in the back of the head, I might have, but I don't know.
It's an interesting question that I will narrow down a little bit. Ted, what's the worst thing you have ever been hit with, whether in the ring or at ringside or wherever?
Gosh, I mean, you know, I've been hit with, you know, people who would take their their drink cup, you know, and leave a good bit of ice in it and use the cup as projectile. But I mean, I'll be honest with you, you know, I never got hit in the head, you know, thank God. And as big as my head is, that's a miracle. But I don't know. I've been hit with a lot of stuff, but it was just, you know.
I've heard like some of the grosser stuff I've heard over the years is I've heard both Jake and Eric Bischoff talk about people using their spitter for their tobacco and throwing that at you.
Oh,
And
yeah.
in some instances, maybe somebody even peed into a cup and threw it at a performer, which I don't know about you. I think I'd be climbing into the audience trying to find that guy if that happened to me.
Yeah. Well, ditto. Yeah, it would. Yeah. There's just, and and fortunately for me, I don't know how I seem to avoid that, but I did. Not totally, but it's kind of like the other place where it was tough for us. And here's the thing: I remember when I worked for Bill Watts. Wrestling is show business, but he said, especially he says, we don't want baby face or heel. He says, if you go out and you get in a fight in a club, you better win, because if you don't win, you're fired. Yeah.
That's wow. Okay, so you got to go out there.
Just
really
letting everybody know, I never lost a bar fight. I didn't have that many. There was just the couple occasions that I did. It was just somebody who was just genuinely a shithead, and just running off the mouth, and I remember one guy. I mean, I literally, I grabbed his coat, and I physically, it angered me so much that he was such a pest that I just turned around, I grabbed his jacket, and I picked him up, and I pressed him against the wall. His feet were dangling, like this far off the ground.
Wow.
And I just cut a promo on him and let him go. And when he hit the ground, he got up running. So.
Well, I think a lot of people look at you and then, are like, well, he's an average sized guy, but that's because you were standing by like Hogan and Jake and all these really enormous guys. You were what, like 6'5"?
Yeah, I was 6'4", 260 pounds. That ain't little.
No, that is not a man to piss
But
with.
you're right. Standing next to Andre or Hogan, gosh, yeah. Yeah, I've had a lot of people tell me that. Gosh, Ted, I didn't think you were that big.
Not to mention an offensive lineman in college. So yeah, pretty.
Yeah.
Not a dude to piss with.
Yeah. Well.
Next up, we've got Chris Eddy with one that made me laugh. And this is actually a question that I got a similar topic with Jake recently. Was Ted a baby oil guy? Ted, it's a big thing in pro wrestling. Guys will cover themselves in baby oil to show off the muscles. Did you ever do that?
No, I hated it. I hated it, and it's kind of like Lex Luger and I we're great friends now, and we were never enemies. But Lex, man, he would put on that baby, and I get it. I mean, he put on the baby oil and what's the word?
Accentuates.
Yeah, your physique and everything. But when you get in the ring and you try to grab a hold of that guy, he's like trying to grab a hold of a fish. You can't grab him because he's all greasy. So
probably not a good thing in a business where you've got to lift this guy at times, right? To have this guy being slipping out of your arms. I mean, it could be dangerous for him and you.
Yeah. And then the other reason that I never oiled up is like I never had that great of a body. I mean, I looked like an athlete, but I didn't look like I just came out of Muscle and Fitness magazine.
You were like chiseled.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I also produced Jeff Jarrett's podcast, and on an episode of his show, Conrad asked him, how would you get the baby oil on yourself? He was like, do you have like a guy backstage that like puts oil on you? And Jeff was like, no, you just like put oil on like a wall and like rub your back on it. And Conrad's like, wait a minute, you're telling me there's like a bunch of oil streaks on walls and buildings? Ted, did you ever witness that behavior?
No.
Maybe it was just a Jeff Jarrett.
No, I mean, I would. I would venture to guess that, probably one of the other guys would, oil up his back and then just go wash their hands. I mean,
That would be enough for me to not want to get oiled up. I don't need some hairy dude touching me. All right, next up we've got Curtis Polanen, who asks, if given a chance to main event Mania as WWE champion, who would you want your opponent to be? So Ted, you and I have discussed it before, and I know that you certainly never needed the WWF title or any championship really. However, it is kind of like a dream for most guys to main event Mania as champion. If you could pick anybody, who would it be?
Oh gosh, obviously back then, because one of the obvious choices would be Hogan, because Hogan was the guy. And of course, and I don't think Hogan gets enough credit. I mean, people say, well, he really wasn't a great wrestler. Okay, he wasn't a great wrestler in terms of hammer locks and wrist locks and all this other stuff, and leg sweep and what have you. But what Hogan was very good at was understanding who his character was. And how his character, here's this great big guy, and kind of like Andre the Giant. Andre the Giant was great because Andre the Giant could go in the ring and in a very believable way get into a place where the people actually thought he was in danger of losing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like it would take a while for you to get him off his feet. But once you got him to his knees, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's all about the way you tell the story.
And man, easily in my mind's eye, I can picture one of those WrestleMania posters with you and Hogan on it. Ted and his money versus Hogan and all of his Hulkamaniacs. Like, I don't know. To me, that I'm honestly kind of surprised, thinking back on it, that you never really had that opportunity with Hogan on, in a huge pay-per-view main event like that.
Well, and I guess in an effort to please a lot of people, and of course, I didn't know this for the longest time, but I think when I came along and I was getting real red hot, it was the reason that WrestleMania 4 went the way it did was to appease Randy Savage. And I'll be honest with you, I get it. Randy was a great worker, and he was a heel. And okay. And so now we're going to this WrestleMania, and I just came along. I started actually physically wrestling for the company, maybe in June or July
of the previous year. Yeah.
Yeah. And so by the time WrestleMania is coming back around, and basically what I did was I was the one that turned Randy babyface.
Yep.
Because the last match ended up him and me. And so, as it turns out, I never was WWF World Champion. But but here's what I understand about wrestling: it's a story. Nobody's really the world champion. If you're in a movie, it's kind of like, but obviously, but I'd say this though. Whoever is the world champion, whoever carries that belt, as a rule, needs to be somebody that has the savvy to get in the ring and wrestle anybody and get a match out of them.
And say what you want about Hogan, he carried that belt for a long time. So clearly he had that savvy to be able to climb into the ring with folks and have a good match.
Yeah. And I had several matches with him. I had a lot of matches with him and Savage and me and Andre, or him and somebody else. Anyway, but that's the bottom line is I never got the world title. Well, and again, to appease me, so to speak, that's why I created my own title. And here's the thing, the $1 million championship, you know, I mean, I carry that thing now, and there's so many fans. They said, I want to take a picture with the $1 million belt. And so they do. And so it's kind of like, but the thing that made people hate me back then was I was so arrogant. It was like, I don't need your stinking championship. I'm going to declare myself the champion, and you wrestle me for my belt.
And it's perfect.
And my belt is going to look better, and it's going to be more expensive than any other belt in wrestling history.
It's just good storytelling.
And it's storytelling. And I mean, you know what it got me was a whole lot of heat. You know, what an arrogant la 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 la. You know, who's he think he is? Type of, you know, and that was the whole point, was to give me heat. And if you're a heel, that's what you want to keep your heat.
Now,
you want to be able to go in the ring, have a match with a guy like Hulk Hogan, and even if you get beat, you keep your heat.
Yep.
You know, and it's like, and that was the thing for me. It was like, no matter how many times I wrestled whoever, people were just going to continue to hate me, and that was the whole idea.
And you stayed one of the top heels in the company for 9 years, so proof was in the pudding. Did I hear you correctly? Do you bring the $1 million championship? You have your own copy of the $1 million championship?
Yeah, I have a replica, and I take it to me to all these autograph signings, and man, they just want to take a picture with the championship belt.
Well, there you have it, folks. In case I didn't know that, so I'm guessing a lot of our listeners didn't know that. Go ahead
and a little history on now. That's the belt I have is not the original belt. I have a replica.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the WWE. I mean, they sent me 2 replicas. So I had two replicas, and so if I wear one out, I still got another one, and if I need to get another one, I can call them and get another one.
That's awesome.
But the real belt in 1988, when they had that belt made, its estimated value was $40,000, and they had it insured. And I had to, like, when we would go overseas, when we'd go to England and stuff, I had to take a declaration page, like sort of for going through customs, like what's the value of this thing, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what it was, 40 grand. Today, I have no idea what it would be worth.
6 figures, certainly.
The belt it's in the safe in Stanford.
Maybe call Vince and see if you can get your hands on that one. Say, I'll send you this replica. Could you send me the actual belt?
Yeah, what's funny is that when I had first left the WWE, I got a call from Linda McMahon. Well, first I got a call from somebody in the office. They said, "Ted, we need for you to send us the $1 million belt." I says, "You have the $1 million belt. It's right there." And I said, the last time I was there, I can't remember where I was. I departed from. I said it was right there. And so then a couple of days go by, and I get a personal call from Linda McMahon saying, "Ted, we really need for you to send us a belt." And I said, "Linda," I said, "after all you guys have done for me, do you think that I would really try to steal the belt? I promise you, it is there somewhere." So a couple more days go by, and it wasn't Linda who called, but somebody else called and said, "Ted, we just wanted you to know we found the belt." I said, "Great. Where was it?" And the laugh from the other side, and they said, "In the safe." Did anybody think of maybe looking there first?
That might be the spot. Man, it's it would be cool if you did wind up having that belt in your possession, but cool if they sent you replicas that now you get to go out there with the fans and have these cool photo ops. So guys, if Ted is going to be in a city near you, go out of your way. It's a really cool photo op to get to have with the $1 Million Man himself. Next up, we've got Billy Misovich, who asks, this is a fun question: would you have ever participated in a barbed wire match like your mentor Terry Funk?
No. No, I never participated in a barbed wire match, and I had no desire to. I mean, I loved Terry Funk. I loved him like a brother. He was a mentor to me. He was probably the first guy that I would go to if I ever had a question about anything that related to wrestling. Terry and his brother, Dory Funk Jr., again, two guys, they were both NWA world champions. But Dory Jr., he had his own style. But the difference, I would say, is this: Terry could wrestle like his brother, or Terry could be the wildest, craziest orangutan you've ever seen. And I think that's why he and Mick Foley got to be such good friends. It's because, Mick does all that crazy stuff.
Yep.
But no, I mean, Terry could do it all.
Cut from the same cloth for sure, those two. Now, Ted, you and I have said before on the show here, everybody's got a price. So what kind of a price would it take for you to do a barbed wire match? Or is it just, nope, we'll never do it? There's got to be some figure that would get you to say, well, okay.
It's like, never say never. I mean, I've got to live up to my own words. Everybody's got a stinking price.
I mean, I'm picturing somebody.
If you want to give me, $250,000, I'll do it.
I'll tell you what, that is a hell of a
actually, I think I'd do it for less than that.
It's funny because my initial thought was like, yeah, I mean, if somebody offers me $1 million, yeah, I'd do it. And then I was like, what if somebody offered me 10 grand for a 15-minute match? It's like, probably. I'd probably do it.
Yeah.
It would be terrible, and hopefully they have some antiseptic backstage. But yeah. Next up, we've got Andy Etzweiler, who asks, even though your entrance music is legendary, if you were able to pick your own entrance song from any recorded song in history, what would you change it to?
Wow.
Any recorded song. And by the way, it doesn't have to go with the $1 Million Man character, just like a song that would be cool for you to walk out to.
I've never really thought about that.
That's an interesting one. And, Ted, nowadays, Tony Khan, who runs AEW, he's licensing a lot of music for his people to come out to. So, like, a lot of really popular songs have now become entrance themes for talents. So it's kind of becoming a thing in wrestling nowadays. So I'm guessing that's where this question came from.
Wow.
Yeah. What kind of music do you like? I know you like Elvis. That's probably not great entrance music.
I do. I love Elvis Presley, but I don't think there's anything that's Elvis that would fit like a in an entrance music. It would so it would have to be something more heavy metal.
Right.
Oh my gosh, that's what? Let's save that one.
Yeah,
let's save that, because I really want to think about that, because I've never thought of it that way. It's like I knew that Jimmy Hart, he's the guy that created all the entrance music for the guys, including me. And originally the music that Hulk Hogan ended up coming out to, originally I was told that Mike Rotunda and Barry Windham as a tag team had that music.
The U.S. Express, that makes sense.
Yeah. I am a real American. Yeah.
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 How about that?
They originally had it, but I don't know how Hulk stole it from them.
I would say it worked out pretty well for Hulk. And actually,
Yeah.
you know, Jake had that really iconic entrance theme. And before Jake showed up, or at least before he got the theme, there's a workout video of Hogan, and Jake's theme was playing in the background during it before it became Jake's theme. So Hogan's kind of got his fingerprint. I'm surprised he didn't do something with the $1 Million Man theme at some point. Well, look, I mean, it worked out pretty perfectly for you with that entrance music. I mean, you want to talk about iconic. People reference it all the time.
Yeah. Money, 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 money.
How'd you feel doing it?
I sang it.
I was going to say, when you were doing the voiceover.
You know, I didn't sing. I mouthed it, of course.
You were talking in
realize everybody's going to pay. $1 Million Man always gets his way.
You still got it, brother. Now, when you were doing that, as you're like in the studio, I assume in front of a microphone saying these lines, are you like, oh boy, this song is going to be weird, but or like right out of the gate where you're like, okay, I get it, this is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
You felt like it was going to be great right out of the gate.
Well, I didn't know. I needed to like see it in action, see how the fans responded to it. So anyway.
Well, gotta give it up. It worked out very well.
Yeah.
Roger Redding is up next. Why hasn't Virgil been inducted into the Hall of Fame? Ted, let me alter that one a little bit. Does Virgil belong in the WWE Hall of Fame?
No, because I mean, Virgil, he was a valet, period. He never wrestled. The only wrestling match he may have had was with me. And that was, it was short-lived because honestly, he's a nice enough guy. He's just not that wrestling savvy. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I mean, the reason that they chose him to be my valet was basically because of his look, because he had that, he'd stand there. I mean, and the one thing I give to his credit and is the way he maintained that chiseled body, for years. If Virgil could have had if he had any real wrestling ability, I mean, in terms of understanding of what we do, I could have had, I mean, it's like for as long as he was like the valet and taking my crap, and then, we finally did that thing where he bowed up and and again, we could have, if he'd have had any real wrestling talent, I mean, we could have had a really good program.
Yeah.
But he just doesn't have it.
All right, Ted, we'll do a few more and I'll let you go. Ryan Taylor is up next. Who is on your Mount Rushmore of pro wrestling heels? So top 4, and look, let's narrow this down a little bit. It doesn't have to be like who you think are the greatest of all time. Just like you personally, who do you like as pro wrestling heels?
Pro wrestling heels, man. Well, I would probably put my father at the top of that list.
Was your dad a heel?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's perfect.
Iron Mike DiBiase. And because he was my dad and because I learned just about everything I know by watching him, and the way he carried himself as a heel. But I mean, that's a son, putting over his dad.
Sure.
For sure. Again, Terry Funk.
Gotta be.
I mean, Terry Funk. I mean, and again, Terry could go either way. He could be the greatest baby face in the world. I mean, here's what you understand. It's like the NWA world champion. Now, the Funks are both from Texas, Amarillo, Texas. So when they were world champions, the only place that they were baby faces was in Texas, in the Amarillo territory where everybody knew them and knew they were from there. But in all the other territories, the world champion is a heel. And the reason is the world champion's a heel because when he comes to those different territories, they're going to put him against their top babyface.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be the biggest draw. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
If you got a world champion coming in and he's a babyface and you put him on against your biggest heel, well, you're just going to want to see him win. But when you bring a guy in and he's the world champion and he's a heel and he's going to go up against your number one babyface, that's what you're really pulling for, because you want to see your number one guy beat the other guy. I mean, it's just the way it worked. And so the only place that you were ever babyface as a world champion would be in your home territory. And for the Funks, that would have been Amarillo.
And Terry as a traveling heel champion, I mean, iconic stuff. I gotta imagine Harley Race is on your Mount Rushmore as well.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Just incredible heel.
Incredible heel. And same thing there. I mean, his home territory was Kansas City. He and Bob Geigel and I think Pat O'Connor were partners in what was then called the Kansas City territory back in the territory era. And again, the only place that Harley was a babyface was in Kansas City. It worked the same way there. But yeah, definitely on top of my list as one of the best.
One more for that Mount Rushmore to be completed.
Man. There's so many guys. I mean, it's kind of like I think about like my tag team partner in Japan, Stan Hansen.
Oh, great one.
Stan was, he was and Bruiser Brody.
Yep.
Here's another guy who was a tremendous heel.
All right, so we have to make 5 spots on the Mount Rushmore so we can add Stan Hansen and Bruiser Brody. I think that
works. Okay. Colonel Buck Robley.
That is not one I was expecting. Buck Robley.
Buck Robley was a one heck of a heel. I mean, he could, again, he's another guy who could do it all, but I don't know. Maybe that's pushing it a little bit.
No,
but,
hey, look, this is your Mount Rushmore of heels.
Yeah,
so if Buck Robley's on there, he's on there.
A lot of the guys, like the guys we've mentioned, are all guys that had influence in the development of me as a wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
Harley Race, the Funks, those guys. Those guys were the biggest influence on me, and of course my dad. So
great ones. No, I think that's perfect for your personal Mount Rushmore. I think it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
Ted, let's do one more, and I will let you go. We've got Jay Lee, 1980, who asks, and actually you and I had talked about this a little bit before we hit record. What happened to your tuxedos? Those need to be part of A&E Lost Treasures and put on display.
Well, I think I have one left, and the one I have that's left is it's white with gold trim, and I think I actually only wore it a couple of times, and I think that was I wore it in Europe. I think is when I went over there when we wrestled in Wembley Stadium. I think is where I debuted that thing. Now I had a black and gold one. I had a silver one with trim. I had a green one, and I had the black one, and I had that and the white one. And I have one left. The others, quite frankly, I gave to charities to raise money for special causes. So that's where they went.
That's a good reason not to have them anymore. And
And I thought about having one. I don't know if that lady that my wife found a seamstress locally that would make those for me, and I don't know if she's still around. And I thought about having another one made, but if she had it made, I couldn't get in it. Yeah, because I'm a little bigger than yeah.
You could ever make it a little bigger. Let me tell you, that could be really good stuff for your autograph signings. You're there in one of those old tuxedos.
Oh gosh.
Well, look, I think that white one that you still have in your possession, if I remember right, I think you wore that at WrestleMania 9 as well. So pretty iconic tuxedo.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah.
Yep.
That was out in was that in Vegas?
Yes.
Yeah, that was an outdoor show.
So that thing is never recovered. It's still covered in sweat. Vegas outdoors and like whatever it is, April. I'm sure you were roasting in that thing.
Wow.
Well, hey, that's awesome that you still got it in your possession, man. Is that kind of thing? I mean, a true piece of wrestling history you've got there. That's awesome.
$1 million dream, tell them all good night. Everybody's got a pod, everybody's got a